The other day I made a video on why the world should thank Israel for taking out Iran's nuclear sites. And I knew my position would be unpopular, as my positions usually are. And I knew I was going to lose subscribers. But at last count, I think I lost like 40 subscribers, which is not surprising. But the reasons they gave were surprising. And there was two reasons. I'm going to go over them both in this video. But first I want to read something by A.W. Tozer. He's talking about evangelicalism, but I'll show you the parallel. This was written in 1948. A.W. Tozer was a self-taught theologian back in the day. He wrote this: Christian literature, to be accepted and approved by the evangelical leaders of our times, must follow very closely the same train of thought, a kind of party line from which it is scarcely safe to depart. A half century of this in America has made us smug and content. We imitate each other with slavish devotion, and our most strenuous efforts are to put forth to try to say the same thing that everyone around us is saying. So that was Tozer, A.W. Tozer, 1948, talking about evangelicals. And I could say the same thing about Catholic YouTube in 2025. So I know what's popular and what's not popular. And people say, oh, you shouldn't talk about that. I get people telling me all the time, oh, you shouldn't talk about this, you shouldn't talk about that. You know, because I know what I'm going to say. So I'm going to tell you the reasons I was given and why they're wrong, in my humble opinion. So reason one, a lot of Catholics think Catholics are pacifists. We are not pacifists. Amish, Mennonites, Quakers, these Christian sects are pacifists. Catholics are not pacifists. I mean, we'll go right back from the beginning. First of all, we'll go to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, praise God, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Anyone could just glean through the Old Testament and you'll come across dozens of wars that God had sanctioned. Now, the Catholic Church acknowledges that sometimes there's a time for war, but we have conditions, for us to support it. We call it a just war. Catechism 2308 says, all citizens and all governments are obliged to work for the avoidance of war. However, as long as the danger of war persists, and there is no international authority with the necessary competence and power, governments cannot be denied the right of lawful self-defense once all peace efforts have failed. This in 2309. The strict condition for legitimate defense by military force requires rigorous consideration. The gravity of such a decision makes it subject to rigorous conditions of moral legitimacy. At one and the same time, the damage inflicted by the aggressor on the nation or community of nations must be lasting, grave, and certain. All other means of putting an end to it must have been shown to be impractical or ineffective. There must be serious prospects of success. The use of arms must not produce evils and disorders graver than the evil to be eliminated. The power of the modern means of destruction weighs very heavily in evaluating this condition. These are the traditional elements enumerated in what is called the just war doctrine. The evaluation of these conditions for moral legitimacy belongs to the prudential judgment of those who have responsibility for the common good. So, in a nutshell, our governments have to try every way possible for peace. Now, Iran has called America the Great Satan, Big Satan, and Israel, Little Satan. The leaders of Iran constantly, daily, for years, have shouted death to America. That's their chant. When they get together in their political circles, when we say God bless America and sing Star Spangled Banner, they're saying death to America, death to Israel, death to America, death to... This is, as their supreme religious leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has said, death to America isn't just our slogan, it's our policy. This is what we're going to do. They're telling us what they're going to do. And I could go back decades, but I'll just go back to President Obama. For 8 years, he worked on a peace deal. And for 8 years, they violated everything. He said, you can't build a nuclear bomb. Oh, we won't. And he said, we need inspectors in there. They never once let an inspector go see. And what we know from satellites is they were violating the plan. They were getting ready to build a nuclear bomb. And Obama just kept appeasing them, giving them billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars. And the Iranians gave it to their terrorist savages, their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Islamic jihadists, Houthis, and just spread terrorism throughout the world. Every Western government recognizes Iran as the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world. Every Middle East government does as well. Saudi Arabia is closer to Israel today than Iran. Every Middle Eastern country is for this. They want Israel. They're happy Israel's taken out these nuke sites. So Obama tried for peace, and it was failing miserably. They were getting closer and closer to Obama. Then Trump comes in with a different strategy. No, we're not going to give you money. We're going to make you broke so you don't have money. And his plan worked. They were on the brink of bankruptcy. They couldn't fund the Hamas savages. They couldn't fund the Houthis. There was relative peace in the Middle East. And Iran was getting ready to make a deal because they were so broke. Well, then comes Biden, and he doubles down on Obama's failed plan, gives them billions and billions. And the first thing they do, I think they got $7 billion, and within 2 days they gave it to Hamas they gave it to Hamas, and Hamas accomplished the worst massacre, worse than 9/11, percentage-wise, the worst massacre since the Holocaust on October 7th. And not only did 1,200 Jews get massacred, tortured in a vicious way by these savages, 40 Americans. And not only did hundreds of Jews get taken hostage and tortured, but Americans were taken. There's still like 2 or 3 Americans still being held. There's still dozens of Jews still being held by these Hamas terrorists that are torturing them. So we tried it both ways. Trump comes in again, and he had a lot of people in his cabinet that just wanted to say, okay, take the leash off Israel, let them bomb Iran. He said, no, I want to try and get a deal. I think I can get a deal. He said, we'll give them 60 days. And he gave him, he like, listen, we can make you prosperous. We can make your country the shining light in the Middle East. He was giving them the carrot. He was trying to use economic incentives. So listen, last time I made you broke economically. This time I want to make you rich. We have the power. We're America, the greatest country in the world. We can do this for you. We could be your best friend. And they didn't want it. They want a nuclear bomb because they hate America. And people are like, oh, we shouldn't go to our war with Iran. We are already at war. We learned that lesson. After 9/11, the first thing a bipartisan commission of Democrats and Republicans said what happened on 9/11 is they were at war with us. They, meaning Islamic extremists. They were at war with us, and we didn't know it. They're at war with us still. They're still at war with us. So Trump tried everything, and this is what the Catechism says. You try everything to make peace. And even the international governing bodies that are usually not friendly with Jewish people, no one likes the Jews these days. Anti-Semitism is at a height that we haven't seen since World War II. even those guys said, yeah, they're like about a week or two away from making enough enriching enough uranium to make 9 atomic bombs. So the time for talk is done. The time for talk is done. So that's why I said we should thank Israel for taking out these nuclear facilities. They put them years behind, but there's one deep in a mountain called Fordo, and they put it like a mile underground in this mountain. And the only way to take it out is with a bunker buster bomb that only the United States possesses. So I'm thinking within a couple days, today's Wednesday, maybe by Thursday or Friday, we're going to get involved and we're going to drop it. But Israel did the dirty work. They risked their lives first. They became air dominant. They cleared everything out. So by the time we go there, our guys got nothing to worry about because Israel has demolished any defenses Iran could put up against us. So I think war is imminent. I don't think it's going to be a long, drawn-out war. Trump hates war, and this is where the sticky point came in. A lot of people voted for Trump because they realized he was different than the uniparty. The Democrats and Republicans have been sold out to the military-industrial complex forever. And there's never been a war these guys didn't like, and they'll get us in the wars, and people get rich. You know, on both sides. The Cheneys, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, made tens of millions of dollars on the Iraq war with Halliburton. Joe Biden's family made tens of millions of dollars with his brother Joe starting a building company in Iraq with there's just total grift in Washington. Trump got booed in his first debate in Texas, Republican primary debate, because he said Bush was stupid for getting us into Iraq. He's always maintained that stance. So he's got a lot of peace voters, people that hate war, that think we should not get involved in any wars. So he's not going to get us in a drawn-out war. He's letting Israel do the dirty work. We may drop this bunker bomb, or I don't know if they have the capability to drop it themselves. We may give them that bomb and let them drop it. But I noticed we're putting the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier, which has a lot of Navy jet fighters, the best. You think Israel's good. Our Navy's the best. So I'm sure our Navy's going to make sure that B-2 bomber is safe. So it ain't just going to be one plane. Just like it's never just one ship. We send like 20 ships when we say the Nimitz is there. They got like 20 ships around them protecting that ship. And if that B-2 bomber comes up, there's going to be jets around it protecting it. So it's going to seem like we're in this big war. But before this, during this 60 days, he's trying to negotiate this peace, Trump. He's made deals with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait. All these countries love us now. Honest to God, in Orlando, where I work, I have a lot of customers that are Middle Eastern Muslims, and they love Trump, believe it or not. One guy has a poster on his car, and I think it's the leader of Saudi Arabia and Trump together smiling, and on top it said, "The way it should be." So we're already set. No one's going to attack us. You say, "Oh, well, Iran will attack us." They hate us already. You know, we know because the FBI tells us Biden let in thousands of terrorists that hate us through the open border. I mean, this is a risk we got already. They're going to attack us anyway. So that's that. But why? So number one, a lot of these peace guys that voted for Trump, they're getting mad at Trump, and they're trying to, talk him out of it, out of war. But Trump sees the danger. If Iran gets a nuke, there's going to be a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, they all said if Iran gets a nuke, we can't trust them. We need to build nukes. So Obama said they can't have a nuke. Biden said they can't have a nuke, and Trump said they can't have a nuke. But Trump is the only one doing something about it. So that's that. But then the second thing, I get a lot of anti-Semitic reasons. Like, people are taking the sides of Iran and Hamas over the Jews. Like, they're believing, the same people that don't believe the liberal media when they tell us lies about Republicans and conservatives are believing the lies about the Jews. Like, they're the bad guys. Like, I hear Catholic YouTubers talking about Israel like they're the bad guys. And I'm wondering, where is this coming from on Catholic YouTube? Well, a small niche group called the SSPX has a lot of power on YouTube. There's a lot of people. You got Kennedy Hall, who admits he's an SSPX member. Taylor Marshall always talking about how wonderful the SSPX is, and many others. And this is where it's coming from. The SSPX, Richard Williamson, he was one of the bishops that Marcel Lefebvre ordained, and Pope St. John Paul excommunicated when he excommunicated Lefebvre. In total disobedience, total outright disobedience to the Pope, he ordained Richard Williamson. And this is what Richard Williamson has said publicly that got him excommunicated again. After Pope Benedict lifted his excommunication, he excommunicated him again. So Richard Williamson is so wicked, he was excommunicated twice by the Catholic Church. So he says the Jews created the Holocaust so the world would bow down to him. He's a Holocaust denier. In 1989, a former Nazi murderer wanted for war crimes, Paul Tavere, was found hiding out in an SSPX monastery. He was arrested for war crimes, and he admitted he lived there over 20 years. The SSPX protected this Nazi. And then in, I think it's 1994, I didn't put the date, but around that time, the SSPX announced that we're going to celebrate the life of Erich Priebke. Erich Priebke was a convicted Nazi war criminal murderer. The Vatican told them, no, don't give him a public funeral. But the SSPX was founded on disobedience, so of course they disobeyed the Pope and said, no, we're going to have it anyway. But the people, the Catholic people, were so upset, they protested, and it looked like it was going to be a riot, and the police stopped it, and I believe they just had a private little funeral to celebrate this Nazi criminal. This is the SSPX. They have an out, they won't come right out and say, oh, they support the Jews. They will say stuff about the Holocaust that's not true. You know, they'll toe the line. They'll say, oh, well, I don't think that many people got killed, and, you know. And they say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. I don't hate Jewish people, we just hate the state of Israel. To me, that's like saying, I'm not racist, I just hate black people. So where do they get this? And then, of course, just like legalists will take, legalist Protestants will take scripture out of context to make their point. These guys will take popes out of context to make their point. Well, Pope Pius X, he's a saint, and he's a wonderful saint. He actually said, if you dissent from the Pope, you're not holy, but they never read that part. But Pope Pius X told a guy named Herzl, we cannot recognize Israel. We cannot recognize a Jewish state. This is like 1904. The Jews were being persecuted. They were looking for a home. They wanted to go to Palestine. And Herzl had an interview with him. And Pope Pius said, we can't recognize a Jewish state because the Jews don't recognize Jesus. But I was going to read the whole thing, but it's pretty long, and I got to get to work this morning. But the conversation was more than that. Pope Pius said he was friends with Jews when he was in Mantua, Italy. He's very friendly with Jews. He knows a lot of Jews. And he says, besides religion, there's other things. There's courtesy and philanthropy. And we can show you that. We can show you kindness. We can love you. We can pray for you. But if you go to Jerusalem, we can't stop you. But we won't recognize it. And there'll be churches and priests ready to baptize your people. Praise the Lord. And if you see the conversation, it seemed like a very friendly conversation. So that was Pope Pius X in 1904. But then you go up to World War II and Pope Pius XII. They'll say, oh, he didn't, he stayed neutral, during World War II. He didn't criticize Hitler. Yes, but after the war ended, we found out why. He made a deal with Hitler. He said, I won't publicly criticize you if you leave our churches alone. And he had a plan. The Catholic Church hid over 900,000 Jews. They saved more Jews than Schindler. They saved more Jews than Americans the Catholic Church saved over 900,000 Jewish souls, and it came out of sacrifice. Many Catholic priests were killed. Catholic nuns were killed because they wouldn't give up where these people were hidden. And Hitler wouldn't allow his men to go check the churches. And after World War II, the chief rabbi, I believe his name was Rabbi Zolli, in Rome, converted to Catholicism because he's seen such love from the Catholic Church. The state of Israel gave Pope Pius XII their highest civilian medal because he did more to save the Jews than anyone. Pope St. John Paul II called the Jews our elder brothers. And then Pope Benedict XVI said, I don't refer to them as our elder brothers because they really don't like that, because the elder brother was Esau and he rejected God. So I call them the fathers of our faith. So this is how Catholics should look at the Jews. Yes, we can't recognize their religion. Jesus showed us he's the Messiah, and they reject the Messiah. I'm not saying don't convert them. I'm not saying their religion is still true. It was true until Jesus fulfilled their law. But I'm saying we can love them and show kindness, and we could support a just war. Iran's goal, they tell us what they want to do, and they do it. They want to kill every Jew and every American. So this is a just war. And you see, Israel, every target was a military target in Iran. Every target Iran shot back was a civilian target. They have no respect for life. They put bombs on their 5-year-old kids and say and blow them up. These people are evil. These people are lunatics. These people cannot get a nuclear weapon. And this is why Trump said they're not getting one. And this is why, as Catholics, we can support this just war. Because if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, they will use it. You know, I believe Putin and Xi are evil men, but I believe they're rational men, and they're not going to use their nukes. The Ayatollah Khomeini is not rational. These are lunatics that fly planes in the buildings, that blow up little children, that use women and children as human shields. They're in their own documents. You read Hamas saying, we want as many civilian casualties as possible to get the world on our side to hate the Jews. This is why they always put the children and women in military facilities, and they put their military in hospitals and schools, you know? And this is why you shouldn't believe reports that are reported by Hamas. These guys are liars and murderers, you know? And they report to the liberal media that's glad to report it. So anyway, I had a lot more to say. I just want to say, if you want to understand what Pope Benedict and Pope St. John Paul were talking about, them being our elder brothers, great book, Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist by Brant Petrie, brilliant scholar. Salvation is from the Jews by Rory Scoman. Learn your history. Learn the history of the church. You know, God bless. Stay Catholic, and God bless America, and God bless Israel.